Hello and shalom, brothers and sisters of Messiah Yeshua. Welcome back. I'm Jeremy, and this is Dead Sea Scrolls Are Alive. So I decided to do this teaching real quick before we get into Millennial Day 6. I probably should have done it after Millennial Day 4 because it's very important, kind of between 4 and 5. But I decided to do it now because there's so much stuff coming out, both good and bad, about the Dead Sea Scrolls. And especially within the Torah community, there are people that are fighting against it, and some that are embracing it and accepting some of the things. And I think that some of the people that are fighting against it, not all of them, but many of them, are doing it without ever having even read them. So I would encourage you, whatever your belief is about them, go through this teaching, look at some of this evidence that I'm providing, and go read the scrolls for yourself. It really doesn't take that long. And regardless of what outcome you come out with it, you're going to see what many believers and people believing in the New Testament or the New Covenant and believers in Yeshua, which we're going to see throughout these scrolls, they believed, what they believed, and some of the things that we don't find in our Bible today, and some of the things that were removed, such as the Apocrypha and stuff. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so this is an overview of the Qumran community, and what you can see here is that there's many little baptismals, what we would call them. Now, I think some people misuse the term mikvah, because we always say, I need to go mikvah. But in Hebrew, the word for cleaning or washing is not mikvah. And if you look up the word mikvah in your Bible, it only comes about a couple of times, and it's always in reference to something gathered, like yarn or something else gathered. So yes, you could gather water, and you would mikvah water or gather it, but you're going to rachetz, or wash and bathe in it, right? Or you're going to baptize in a mikvah, if that makes sense. And here at Qumran, there are several places for this, for baptizing, which they would say they were mikvahs, which in a sense, yes, if water is gathered, its water is mikvah, and then you would rachetz, or wash in that. You would immerse and baptize. All right, so with that, you can look over this. We'll look at some closer pictures at the end so you can see. But real quick, before we get started, a quick disclaimer. Communities are not all created equal. Even in Yeshua's time, many of the different disciples of, say, John the Baptist and Yeshua, or some of the believers in Yeshua that were scribes or Pharisees, they all had different ideas and stuff, and it took time for them to be able to reason. But many believers that came out, they became united and one with each other in that, and today we're not doing that. So congregations are not all the same stage in their walk, right? You might go to a congregation and maybe you have more knowledge than the pastor, and maybe you've been in the walk a lot longer and they're new to it. That doesn't mean that you can't fellowship there with them. And even if you have differences of opinion on the calendar or whatnot, you don't have to do the festivals when they do them. You can still show up and congregate with them on Shabbat, because I believe 90% of the people still agree on when Shabbat is. Okay, also I want to say this, that churches don't have it all right, nor do they have it all wrong. I believe what's happening in the church today is exactly what happened with the priesthood in Yeshua's day, that it has become corrupt, and that many of the doctrines have grossly misled believers today into thinking that they can just do whatever they want and say, I believe in Jesus, and I'm saved, which is very true. Your belief in Yeshua is what saves you, but belief is action, and by doing his works we show our belief. And if you've watched my teachings before, keeping the commandments is having faith in Yeshua, and he did not come to do away with the Torah, his own words, but he did change the priesthood, and there was a change of covenant. We went from an old covenant, which the priesthood was the Levites. Originally it was supposed to be a priesthood of all the people. They were supposed to be a royal nation, a peculiar people. But when they broke the covenant, they still got a promise for the land, and the fleshly seed, the old covenant of Abraham, still was promised the land and stuff. But under the new covenant, there was promises of an eternal covenant and eternal promises in a resurrected body and better promises. So some of these churches, they have some of the followers and believers in Yeshua in these churches have the great love that the Torah was talking about. Yes, maybe they're not keeping Shabbat and they haven't seen the festivals yet, but many in the Torah movement are moving away from the love that the Torah is supposed to teach us, right? Because the Torah is the foundation, and Yeshua was the founder and finisher of our faith, to show us the greater understanding. And last, I want to say, I do believe that Qumran is where John the Baptist was. I do not believe John the Baptist set up Qumran. It was there a long time before. But even today, when you go there, they talk about the priesthood was usurped in the days of Antiochus Epiphanes, when Jason bribed his way into the priesthood and he became a priest, not through the correct lines. And then after him, another priest paid out more money and got the seat. And I believe it was Menelaus. I can't remember if that's true or not, but don't quote me on that. Anyway, I believe John the Baptist was there, and he was probably the head of the community at that time, or the high priest of the community at that time, after the order of Melchizedek, or after the order of the Zadok priests, which Melchizedek or Melchizedek is king of righteousness, and the Zadok priesthood are the righteous priests. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and go through this study and see what it has to say. All right, so here, this is what they have at Qumran. When you go there, you can read these signs. And off to the left there, it says the Yahad. And many of us know what a Yahad is, but it says, the writers of the scrolls who inhabited this area some 2,000 years ago are often called the Judean Desert Sect. However, their own writings, so the Dead Sea Scrolls, they call themselves the Yahad. So they called themselves a Yahad. And what does that word mean? It simply means to unite or be united with one another. Okay, it's very closely related to the word Echad, to be one. You can see it's just the change of the very first letter from an Aleph to a Yod, or a Yod to an Aleph. And then you have Yahad or Achad, when both of them mean to be united or to be one. Okay, and this is also where Yeshua was speaking before he went to be crucified. His prayer to the Father is that we would be united, right? Because I believe he knew that today he'd be seeing in the end times how divided that we were getting. But in his prayer, he says that they all may be one, as you, Father, are in me and I in you, that they also may be one in us. So Yeshua's prayer is that we would be one, and one with the Father. How are we one with the Father? When we're doing his will and keeping his commandments. And his commandments are love, to love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. The Bible tells us that the whole Torah is based on this love. And not for us to define it, but the Bible defines what love is. Not speaking of the priesthood and the sacrificial system and all that, which we know Yeshua, when he came, he says you're no longer going to worship at Jerusalem or on Mount Gerizim, but you're going to worship in spirit and truth. And that's what we do under the new covenant, is we worship with spiritual worship. And before the covenant in Mount Sinai came, all the believers before that, we're going to see they worshiped in spirit as well. And they were part of the new covenant, even though it had not been ratified yet or brought forth, because it had to be Yeshua. That's why it says that Abraham looked forward to Yeshua's day when that new covenant would be sealed. All right, let's go on. It continues on to say, some scholars identify the Yahad with the Essenes, described by the Second Temple period historians, such as Josephus, due to similarities in ancient descriptions of the two groups. Other scholars, however, identify them with the Zadokites, who were called guardians of the covenant. So they considered themselves Zadokites, the ones that were the true priesthood, because the priesthood had been usurped way back when, right? But they also called themselves the guardians of the covenant. What covenant? The new covenant. But we're also going to read in their writings that covenant existed even in the day of Abraham, and Abraham was part of that covenant. Not the covenant at Mount Sinai, but the eternal covenant, what we would call the new covenant. The Yahad lived at Qumran from the 2nd century BCE to 66 CE, so just before the destruction of the temple, the time of the great revolt of the Jews against the Romans. The community believed to have numbered between 150 and 200. They held to a strict communal lifestyle, rigorously following rules of purification and sending much of their time in scribal work. Right? They found nearly 1,000 scrolls there, and there's probably much more, but that's what they've found. We don't know how much has been lost. Thankfully, just before Israel became before the nation of Israel became a nation, and we're going to talk about that in another teaching, probably after Millennial Day 6, or maybe we will do that next, talking, I think maybe I will do that teaching next, but we'll see, speaking about the nation of Israel and what prophetic views it holds. But this group here spent most of their time in scribal work, and they were studying the scrolls rigorously. Okay, they found, I think, 22 scrolls of Genesis and several others. But what people don't realize is there were only 5 biblical books that they found more books of than the Book of Jubilees. There was, I think, 14 or 15 copies of the Book of Jubilees, and I think 5 of the Book of Enoch. And I know a lot of people, because of the calendar, they throw them out and they don't think of it. But I'm going to do a teaching on the calendar. It'll probably be a later teaching because it's very controversial. But I believe I've found things about the calendar that I've never seen anybody talk about. Why I found them, I don't know. Maybe other people out there have. They just don't have a platform to share it. But we'll do that teaching later. So these people wrote almost 1,000 scrolls or more, because we've found almost 1,000 of them, and we don't know how many more are still out there and how many were lost to trade and selling on the black market, or if any were kept in the Vatican. We don't know. All right, moving forward. All right, and this is just some of the things talking about who found them, right? Where they found them, or what were the caves used for, and who wrote them. I believe that many of the Zadokite priests wrote them, and I believe that even John the Baptist may have written some of them. And also what was found in the caves. So you can read through those later. I want to get through this a little bit quicker. So, all right. Newer findings show that many of these were actually, they thought they were written on some sort of parchment or whatever, but now they're finding that it was actual animal skins. And they can test the DNA on them now, and they can actually combine them, and now they will know, with more accuracy if they've put little pieces in the right places or not. Okay. But another thing I wanted to point out here is that John the Baptist was baptizing right there. Okay. We're going to look at that here in just a second to show you that proof. But this is the area called Bethabara, and that's where it says in the Bible that John the Baptist was baptizing on the other side of the Jordan, not referring to the Jordan, but the Jordan Valley. Okay, and this is the very southern end of the Jordan Valley, and you can see how close it is to all the Qumran caves. All right, so John at Bethabara, let's start out here. It says these things were done in Bethabara, beyond Jordan, where John was baptizing. In Joshua 15:61, it says, in the wilderness, so this is the wilderness, where Bethabara, here it says Betharaba, which is the same place, it's just the Hebrew and the Greek word. Midian and Sakaka and Nibshan and the city of Salt, and En-gedi, 6 cities with their villages. So this is down in the city of Salt, down by the Dead Sea, and it's considered the wilderness, and Bethabara is considered the wilderness. So here's a mosaic found. I believe this is in Jordan, and up there in where the red circle is, you can see the Greek word for Bethabara. And then just south of that is where Qumran caves are found, but that's all missing from the mosaic there. And then you can see the little city of Jericho, and then the bigger city encompassed. It was a complete circle there. You can see, well, an oval. That was Jerusalem. So a quicker look at that and closer, you can see that Greek word there, Bethabara. And it's right where the Jordan empties into the Dead Sea. But also they show a small sliver of that river breaking off and going straight towards Qumran. I find that very interesting, that the Jordan River has, at that time, whoever made this, it's showing that that river broke off before going into the Dead Sea and moved over there towards the Qumran community. All right, so here you can see Bethabara is right there at the Dead Sea, in the Judean wilderness. Here's another picture of Bethabara, and you can take a closer look at these later. Sorry, they're not very good pictures. And then here is another one that shows same place where Qumran is in those caves, and this is Bethabara, that area. All right, today this is what it looks like. And so you can see there's nothing breaks off and heads over towards Qumran, but back then it did. But you can see how far south this has actually moved down over time. So we don't know how far up it actually was. The picture down, the red circle down at the bottom left shows where Qumran is. And the next one over to the right is where I believe John the Baptist was baptizing, somewhere in that area, because that's where the maps show Bethabara is. But up there, the red circle above, there's two areas there. There's a Coptic Orthodox monastery, and on the Jordan side, there's the baptismal site of where they believe Yeshua was baptized. And it could have been, maybe it was that far up north, but I think it was a little further down south. And then off to the left, you can see Jericho. And then another map real quick just shows, as we saw before, that Qumran was directly east of Jerusalem. All right, so let's look at the way in the wilderness. In Joshua 15:61, right, in the wilderness, Bethabara. So Bethabara is in the wilderness. In Isaiah 40:3, it says, "The voice of him that crieth in the wilderness, prepare you the way of Yahweh, and make straight in the desert a highway for our God," or a path, which we'll see in other verses, or a street. Okay. In Matthew 3:3 it says, "For this is he that was spoken by the prophet Isaiah, saying, the voice of one crying in the wilderness." Where was Bethabara? In the wilderness. "Prepare you the way of the Lord, make his paths straight," or his street straight. It says in Mark 1:3 again, "The voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare you the way of the Lord, make his paths straight." Okay, so keep that in mind. John the Baptist's role was to go out into the desert wilderness to prepare the way and to set up this and make a straight street, or a straight path. Okay, let's look at these words real quick. So the way, I want you to see the G3598. Straight is G6217, and highway is G5147. This is all from the Greek if you're looking at Isaiah in the Greek. And those are going to be the same words, the same Greek words used as Yeshua uses. Okay, but that word there for 4546, that highway, right? So in Hebrew, that word there is H4546. In Greek, it's G5147. But in Hebrew, it means highway, raiseway, public road, or a street. Okay? And so we can compare those to Matthew, and like I said, the same Greek words. But I showed you what the Hebrew word is, and then also the Greek word, and it's the same word. Okay? Let's look at the Damascus document real quick. It says, "The well is the law," or the Torah, "and those who dug it were the converts of Israel, who went out of the land of Judah to sojourn in the land of Damascus." So this is the Dead Sea Scroll saying that they, the people there at Qumran, were Damascus. They're calling their community where they are Damascus, because they sought him, and their renown was disputed by no man. So they left Judah or Judea to go to Damascus, which is the wilderness. Okay, keep that in mind. It also says, they shall distinguish between the clean and the unclean, and shall proclaim the difference between holy and profane. They shall keep the Sabbath day according to its exact interpretation, and the feast and the day of fasting according to the finding of the members of the new covenant in the land of Damascus. So they were the ones preparing the new covenant in the land of Damascus, which we now know was Qumran, but they called their area Damascus. And many scholars believe that the word Damascus has to do with a well-watered land. We know that we could see that the Jordan actually broke off and went down to the Qumran area. We saw that, and it probably watered that area. That's why they had so many baptismals and cisterns. And maybe John wasn't baptizing in that part of the Jordan, but maybe he was baptizing where the Jordan broke off and went towards Qumran. But also, they were keepers of the new covenant, and under the new covenant, receiving of the Ruach HaKodesh, which means you are receiving living water. So Damascus had the living water. It was well watered, and maybe that's why they called it Damascus. Anyway, moving on. It says, they shall love each man his brother and himself as himself, and they shall succor or support the poor, the needy, and the stranger. Okay, so they were doing exactly what Yeshua says new covenant believers are supposed to do. Okay? Again, in the community rule, it says, he shall not rebuke the men of the pit, nor dispute with them. This is speaking of the Messiah. He shall conceal the teaching of the law from the men of injustice, but shall impart true knowledge and righteous judgments to those who have chosen the way. What way? Well, we're going to see that here in a minute. It's the same way that John was to prepare in the wilderness. Okay? And this is exactly what Yeshua told us. He spoke to them in parables, but to the believers and his disciples he spoke openly. And we know that when you receive the Ruach HaKodesh, the veil is removed, and you will see Yeshua and the love behind the Torah all throughout it. Okay, in the Damascus document, remember they called themselves Damascus. It goes on. He decreed an age of wrath for the people who did not know him, and he established appointed times of goodwill for those who search his commandments and walk in the perfect of way. And he revealed hidden things to their eyes and opened their ears so that they might hear deep secrets and understand. Isn't that what Yeshua says? Giving to those the eyes to see and ears to hear? The deep secrets and understand all the future things before they befall them. So it is the Ruach HaKodesh that teaches us and gives us the wisdom, understanding, and knowledge of the things to come. It says, listen now, all you who know righteousness. Right? And what is it? It is perfection of the way. And what is that? Keeping the commandments, doing the work. Because if you believe Yeshua, keep his commandments. Like he says, if you believe me, keep my commandments. He says, if you say you know him, the New Testament says, one who says they know him and keep not his commandments is a liar, and the truth is not in him. It continues in the community rule. It says, he shall guide them all in knowledge according to the spirit of each and according to the rule of the age, and shall thus instruct them in the mysteries of marvelous truth, so that in the midst of the men of the community they may walk perfectly together as one, right? In all that has been revealed to them. This is the time for the preparation of the way into the wilderness, as he shall teach them to do all that is required at that time, and to separate from all those who have not turned aside from all injustice. John the Baptist's job was to come and prepare the way for Yeshua, so that he could perfect the way and teach us what is required and to turn from darkness to light. But it was John and that community that were preparing the way in the wilderness. And that's exactly what we see in the New Testament, and you're going to see how even Yeshua says it himself. Okay, continuing on, it says, and when these became members of the community in Israel, according to these rules, they separate from the habitation of unjust men and shall go into the wilderness to prepare there the way of him, as it is written, prepare in the wilderness the way, make straight in the desert a path for our God. I thought Yeshua said John the Baptist was supposed to prepare the way. He told us. But these Dead Sea Scroll writings are saying that those in that community were preparing the way. Well, it's because they're one and the same. John the Baptist was the one in the community. He was a high priest of them in that day, and they were preparing the way for Yeshua. It says, make straight in the desert a path for our God. This path, what is the path? The study of the Torah, which he commanded by the hand of Moses, that they may do according to all that has been revealed from the age to age, and as the prophets have revealed by his Holy Spirit. So the Holy Spirit is to teach us the love behind the Torah and not veil our eyes from what's really there. And when you open your heart and start reading God's commandments and quit saying that they were a burden and look at the love behind them and the just system, that if any government of this world would follow God's Torah, it would be the most just government that has ever existed. And there have been many scholars in the past that have read that, whether believers or not, and have said the same thing. This actually lays out a pretty just government. Anyway, it goes on in Psalms 27:11. Teach me your way, O Yahweh, and lead me in a plain path because of my enemies. In Psalm 103:7, he made known his ways unto Moses. So his ways are found in Moses, his acts unto the children of Israel. For the commandment is a lamp, and the law a light. Reproofs of instructions are the way of life. I thought Yeshua was the way, the truth, and the life. Well, the Old Testament and the Psalms tell us that the Torah is also the way, the truth, and the life. Yeshua is the Word made flesh. The Torah is the Word given to Moses. It tells us what Yeshua would do. It is our cornerstone. It is our foundation, it is our tutor to lead us into the spiritual. Without the Spirit, you will not see the love behind it. Alright, so now this is going to start making a little bit more sense when we look at Acts. So, this is Paul, right? And he's going to the leaders of the Sadducees and Pharisees, right? Or the Pharisees, sorry. And he says, and asked him for letters to synagogues at Damascus. So Paul's asking, can he go so that he can, and it says, so that if he found any belonging to the way. So here you see the New Testament is connecting Damascus with the followers of the way. And what did we read in the Dead Sea Scrolls? That their community there was Damascus. They called it Damascus because it was a well-watered land. And they were followers of the way. What way? Returning to the Torah with love and brotherly love and keeping what God said for us to do. But not the sacrificial system, not the ways of what was going on in Jerusalem. It goes on. He says, so that if he found any belonging to the way, men or women, he might bring them bound to Jerusalem. Now, as he went on his way, he approached Damascus, and suddenly a light from heaven shone around him. So we know who this light is. I'm not going to go through the whole story, but Paul was on his way to Damascus to the followers of the way. The Dead Sea Scrolls tell us that they were Damascus. They were the followers of the way. They were preparing the way in the wilderness. In Acts, it continues on, and this is Yeshua telling Paul, right? Just after he says he's going to tell them to go to the Gentiles, to turn them from darkness to light, from the authority of Satan to God. He tells Paul to go into Damascus, right? But he says it this way, and the Lord said, he uses a very cryptic term here, and people have looked all over Syria for this street called Straight. But he says, and the Lord said unto him, arise and go into the street which is called Straight. What was John the Baptist doing? Preparing the way in the wilderness to make straight a path for our God. Yeshua is telling him, and that word path can also mean street. Yeshua is telling him, go into Damascus where they're preparing the straight path. That's what he's telling him. Because where does Paul go? It says he goes into Damascus where the disciples are. And we'll see that. He says, and inquire in the house of Judas for one called Saul of Tarsus. For behold, he prayeth. In Acts 9:18 it says, and immediately there fell from his eyes. So we know what happens next, right? He went into the street called Straight. He finds them. He's there. He's praying. And then this happens. And immediately there fell from his eyes, as it were, as it had been scales. So now Paul's eyes are no longer blinded. He can now see. The veil has been removed. And he received sight from within and arose and was baptized. And when he had received meat, he ate. It says he was strengthened. Then Saul certain days with the disciples which were at Damascus. So here we've put it all together now. Paul leaves Jerusalem to go to Damascus after the followers of the way. Halfway there, Yeshua tells him to go into the street called Straight, the same place where they were preparing the path and making straight the path in the wilderness, which was Damascus. Paul then goes there to Damascus, and it says he's with the disciples there. Okay, in Damascus. This is not the Damascus in Syria. Yeshua is referring to John the Baptist and the believers down there because they had not yet moved into Jerusalem. In Galatians 1:13 it says this about after his conversion. Paul says, for you have heard of my conversion in time past in the Jews' religion. Oh, this is very important how he calls what they have, the Sadducees and Pharisees and the scribes, was a religion, not a relationship with God, or else they would be unveiled and they would see the love because they would want to do the things of their Father. It says how that beyond measure I persecuted the church of God and wasted it and profited in the Jews' religion. So he profited in the Jews' religion. He was part of their religion. Above many my equals in my own nation, being more exceedingly jealous of the traditions of the fathers. But when it pleased God, who had separated me from my mother's womb, he called me by his grace. And so Paul's given he's giving the glory to the Father and saying it wasn't for me, he called me. He called me by his grace. He goes on to say, to reveal his Son in me. And that is what we get when we receive Yeshua. We receive his Spirit in us, the Ruach HaKodesh, that I might preach him among the heathen, or the Gentiles, what we learned earlier. Immediately I conferred not with flesh and blood, neither went I up to Jerusalem to them which were apostles before me. So he's saying he's in Damascus where there's disciples, but the apostles were in Jerusalem. So he didn't go to Jerusalem. Where did he go? He says, but I went into Arabia. So Paul goes to Arabia. Many people believe it was Mount Sinai where Elijah went. But people think that he remained in Arabia for 3 years. That's not what it says. It says, and he returned again unto Damascus. So he went back to Qumran. And it says, then after 3 years, I went up to Jerusalem to see Peter and abode with him 15 days. So after his conversion, he was in Damascus. He leaves Damascus to go to Arabia. He comes back from Arabia to Damascus, and he remains there for 3 years. Well, why 3 years? We're going to see here that 3 years is when they believe that Damascus, Qumran, that they had a school of the prophets there. And in Josephus it says this, that Josephus states in connection with the marrying Essenes, remember he thinks that the Damascus people are called Essenes. But he says that they trained their women like their men for 3 years. And it goes on and talks about the discovery in the Judean desert. Okay, so is this referring to them? Maybe or maybe not. But I know a lot of scholars believe that there was a school of prophets at Qumran, and they also trained them 3 years. So was that what Paul was doing? He went back to Damascus for 3 years to now learn the light side of the Torah, and to learn the love behind it, and to see Yeshua all through it. Anyway, moving on. It says in the Damascus document that they may bring near each according to his spirit and deeds, right? Because we're all given different gifts of the Spirit. They shall depart by the decisions of the guardians, and these are the precepts in which all the converts of Israel shall walk. The sons of Zadok, remember Zadok or Zadok means righteousness, and Yeshua is the Melech Zadok. He is the king of the Zadok. The priests, behold, they are the converts of Israel. So those that have converted to Israel. Is that what not the New Testament teaches us, that Gentiles that become believers are grafted into Israel? We are converts. We aren't natural born, but we are made citizens, just like any other country. People can come who are naturally born in another country, but if you choose to follow the ways of this country, then you can be grafted in, or you can become a convert and you can become a citizen. This is the interpretation of the last law, and these are the precepts of the master in which he shall walk. In regard to all Israel, for God shall not save any of those who are not established in his ways to walk perfectly. So even in the Damascus document and coming into the new covenant, he's telling you, you have to walk in his ways to be saved. If you do not, you will not. And that's what belief is. It's not just saying, oh, I believe. Because what does it say about the demons? The demons believe, but tremble. Why? Because they don't walk in his way. They didn't walk in his way. But belief is action. Fear is belief, and belief is action. If you fear God, you fear him because you believe him, and if you believe him, you will do what he says. Okay, this is from the Messianic rule found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It says, the sons of Levi shall hold office, each in his place, under the authority of the sons of Aaron. They shall cause all the congregation to go and to come, each man in his rank under the direction of the heads of the family. So remember, originally at Mount Sinai, before the Ten Commandments came down, when they said, we will do all that you do, God called all the firstborn of all the tribes, and they were going to be the priests, not just of Levi, but it was going to be the heads of the families that were going to rule, and they were going to be a nation of priests. It says, the leaders, the judges, the officers, according to the number of all their hosts, under the authority of the sons of Zadok, the priests, and under the direction of all the heads of family of the congregation. And when the whole assembly is summoned for judgment, or for a council of the community, or for war, they shall sanctify them for 3 days, that every one of its members may be prepared. Okay? In the community rule, it goes on to say, by a binding oath to return with all of his heart and soul to every commandment of the Torah of Moses, in accordance with all that has been revealed of it to the sons of Zadok, the keepers of the covenant. So remember, we saw that before, that they considered themselves the keepers of the covenant, of the new covenant. Why? Because they were preparing the way for the Messiah. And you'll see many things about the Messiah in some of these that we're going to read from, that they were preparing and prophesying about when Yeshua was going to come. Okay? So, we see all throughout the New Testament that we are called children of light, right? While you have light, believe in light, that you may be children of light. These things spake Yeshua, and departed, and did hide himself from them. Yeshua never spoke anything that we cannot find in his Torah, in his word, or in his prophets. But in our canon Bible today, in the Old Testament, you cannot find anywhere where people are called children of light. Do you know where it's found? That's right, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it's all throughout the Dead Sea Scrolls. In Ephesians it also says, for you are sometimes darkness, but now are you light in the Lord. Walk as children of light. And in 1 Thessalonians 5:5 it says, you are all children of the light and children of the day. We are not of the night nor of the darkness. In Matthew 11:1 it says this, and it came to pass when Yeshua had made an end of commanding his 12 disciples, he departed thence to teach and to preach in the cities. Now, when John had heard in prison the works of Messiah, he sent 2 of his disciples and said unto him, Are you he that should come, or should we look for another? So John knew that the Messiah was coming. And he asks him this question. So it's very interesting, the question he asks, because Yeshua gives the response like this. He says, Yeshua answered and said unto him, Go and show John again those things which you have heard and see. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear. The dead are raised up, and the poor have the gospel preached to them. So it's very interesting, because when we go to look at the prophets, which we will, you're not going to see them mentioning the dead are raised up as part of these prophecies. But guess where we do find it? In the Dead Sea Scrolls, and I'll show you that. So let's go for it. So here in Isaiah, some people say that verse, what Yeshua said, that he's quoting Isaiah 35:4, and it says this, Say to them that are of a fearful heart, Be strong, fear not. Behold, your God will come with vengeance, the God with recompense. He will come and save you, right? We're waiting for the day of vengeance and to be saved. But he also says this, Then the eyes of the blind shall be opened, and the ears of the deaf shall be unstopped. Then shall the lame leap, and the heart and the tongue of the dumb shall sing. For in the wilderness shall waters break out, and streams in the desert. Right? Nothing about the dead being raised to life here, or the poor receiving the gospel. Well, let's look at Isaiah 61. It says, The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he hath anointed me to preach the good tidings unto the meek. He hath sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, the opening of the prison to them that are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of Yahweh and the day of vengeance of our God, and to comfort all who mourn. So again, it's talking about the day of vengeance, but nothing about resurrection. And then the last one that people talk about is Isaiah 146:7. It says, Which executeth judgment for the oppressed, which giveth food to the hungry, which looseth the prisoner, yet openeth the eyes of the blind, yet raiseth them that are bowed down, right, bent over, yet loveth the righteous. So none of those talk about the dead being raised to life. So what was Yeshua referring to? Well, there is a prophecy in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it's this scroll which is called the Messianic Apocalypse. And it's speaking of the Messiah, and it says this, The heavens and the earth will listen to his Messiah, and none therein will stray from the commandments of the holy ones, seekers of the Lord. Strengthen yourselves in his service, all you hopeful in your heart. Will you not find the Lord in this? For the Lord will consider the pious, and call the righteous by name. Right? Yeshua says he will give us a new name. Over the poor in spirit will hover, and will renew the faithful in his power, and he will glorify the pious on the throne of his eternal kingdom. Yeshua told us all of these things in the New Testament. But it goes on to say this, He who liberates the captives restores the sight to the blind, strengthens the bent, and forever I will cleave to the hopeful in his mercy, and the fruit will not be delayed for anyone, and the Lord will accomplish glorious things which have never been. As for he will heal the wounded and revive the dead, and bring good news to the poor. He will lead the uprooted and make the hungry rich. So this is the prophecy that Yeshua quoted to John the Baptist, who I believe was at Qumran in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And John the Baptist would have been very familiar with this prophecy. And this is the only place that that's found. Also in the Damascus document it says, For the Master to instruct the sons of light to keep away from the ways of wickedness until the completion of the appointed time for the visitation, right, when Yeshua returns. In the War Scroll it says this, For the Master, the rule of the war, of the unleashing of the attack on the sons of light against the company of the sons of darkness, the army of Belial against the band of Edom, Moab, and the sons of Ammon, and against the army of the sons of the east, the Philistines, and against the bands of the Kittim of Assyria and their allies, the ungodly of the covenant, right? So the godly of the covenant are part of the new covenant. The old covenant are those that have rejected the truth, but they are still the physical seed of Abraham. Anyway, go back to the new covenant and go through that, and it goes all through that. It says, neither be you called masters, for one is your master, Messiah. And it says, and he said, go into the city to such a man, and say unto him, the master saith, my time is at hand. I will keep the Passover at thy house with my disciples. Okay, and all through the Dead Sea Scrolls, it talks about the master, right? And we see that Yeshua is the master, and he's going to a place which many people believe was the Essene quarter, or would be the believers of the Qumran community, and he's going to them saying, hey, the master's coming to do this. Well, he would have known very well who the master was because it's all over the Dead Sea Scrolls. Excuse me. So it says in the scroll called the Master, it says, the Master shall bless them that fear God and do his will and keep his commandments and hold fast to his holy covenant. What's that? The new covenant. And walk perfectly in the ways of his truth, whom he has chosen for an eternal covenant which shall endure forever. Because the old covenant, remember, they said it was a fault with the people when they broke it, not a fault with the covenant, but the new covenant is the eternal covenant forever. It goes on, it says, may the Lord bless you from the abode of his holiness. May he open for you from heaven an eternal fountain, right? The Spirit being poured out, which shall not fail. May he favor you with every heavenly blessing. May he teach you the knowledge of the holy ones. May he unlock for you the everlasting fountain. May he not withhold the waters of life from them that thirst. And what are the waters of life? The Ruach HaKodesh. What resurrects us? The Ruach HaKodesh. The Master shall the Master shall bless the prince of the congregation, and shall renew for him the covenant of the community, that he may establish the kingdom. So he's going to renew for them the covenant, the broken one, and it's going to be a new one, of his people forever, that he may judge the poor with righteousness, and dispense justice with equity to the oppressed of the land, that he may walk perfectly before him in all the ways of truth, and that he may establish his holy covenant at the time of affliction of those who seek God. See, the new covenant, remember, it has the ultimate fulfillment. So we are ministers of the new covenant. We are part of the new covenant. Yeshua's blood is the new covenant, but it has the ultimate fulfillment. The ultimate fulfillment is resurrection and Yeshua's rule and reign on the earth, which will be eternal. The Master shall instruct all the sons of light. Again, there's sons of light. It's all over the Dead Sea Scrolls. And there's also the War Scroll, which is about the war between the sons of light versus the sons of darkness. Again, only found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, not found in our main canon. However, Yeshua talks in the New Testament talk many times about this being sons of light. It says, and he shall teach them the nature of all the children of men according to the kind of spirit which they possess. And if you followed my series, you've seen me read from the Dead Sea Scrolls before, where it talks about the two spirits, which is the picture of the two ways, good and evil, light and darkness. And so he's going to teach us the nature of the spirit which is in all men, either good or evil, until the resurrection, and the evil spirit will be cut off forever. It says the signs identifying their works. Talking same from the scroll of the Master, it says, he shall do the will of God according to all that has been revealed from age to age. He shall measure out all knowledge discovered throughout the ages, together with the precept of the age. He shall separate and weigh the sons of righteousness according to their spirit. He shall hold firmly to the elect of the time according to his will, as he has commanded. He shall judge every man according to his spirit. He shall admit him in accordance with the cleanliness of his hands, and advance him in accordance with his understanding. He shall love and hate likewise. He shall not rebuke the men of the pit, nor dispute with them. Yeshua always he told them how it was. So we saw the ages there, and this is somebody that has broken down the ages of the in the Dead Sea Scrolls. There's 4 ages. The first age is the first 2,000 years, and you'll see that this at the end of one of my teachings. The second age, the third age, and then the fourth age is the millennial day 7, but then it's also millennial day 8. But millennial day 8 is eternal. There's no more death. All right. Continuing on, it says, "He shall conceal the teaching of the law from the men of injustice." We've read that other places in the Dead Sea Scrolls. "But shall impart true knowledge and righteousness and righteous judgment to those who have chosen the way." We saw what the way was. "He shall guide them all in knowledge according to the spirit of each, according to the rule of the age, and shall thus instruct them in the mystery of marvelous truth." So real quick, it says, according to the rule of the age. So remember, before Yeshua, it was the Old Covenant, and they were instructed on that, right, under the Old Covenant. But when John the Baptist came, he came to prepare the way for the New Covenant, because there was going to be a change over. And that's why Paul says that the Old Covenant is ready to vanish away, because it's not until the temple had been completely destroyed, then that Old Covenant was gone. That's why for the last 2,000 years, as hard as they have tried to put that temple back up and to institute sacrifice and all that, not going to happen, because we're not under that. We are under the New Covenant, and we are under spiritual sacrifice. It says, "This is the time for the preparation of the way into the wilderness, and he shall teach them to do all things as required at that time, and to separate from all those who have not turned aside from all injustice." It says, "As it is written," this is from the Messiah scroll. It says, "As it is written in the book of Isaiah the prophet, the thickets of the forest will be cut down with an axe, and Lebanon by a majestic one will fall. And there shall come forth a shoot from the stump of Jesse, a branch of David. They will enter into judgment with him, and the prince of the congregation, the branch of David." Who's that? Yeshua. It says they will kill him by strokes and by wounds, and a priest of the renown will command the slain of Kittim. Okay, so here it prophesies that they're going to kill Yeshua. And in Mark 10:33 it says, saying, "Behold, we go up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man shall be delivered unto the chief priests and unto the scribes, and they shall condemn him to death, and shall deliver him to the Gentiles, and they shall mock him, and shall scourge him, and shall spit upon him, and shall kill him. And the third day he shall rise again." Okay, so even they prophesied of the death of Messiah. Here this is the consolations, or Tehunim, in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It says, "And he shall accomplish thy miracles and thy righteousness among thy people, and they shall," again, there's some of the stuff is missing from these, so you kind of got to just go with it, "thy sanctuary, and shall dispute with the kingdom over the blood of Jerusalem, and shall see the bodies of thy priests, and none to bury them." So that's one of the things that we see in Revelation, is they kill the two witnesses and they don't bury them. It says, "From the book of Isaiah, consolations, comfort, comfort my people, says your God. Speak to the heart of Jerusalem, and cry to her that her bondage is completed, and her punishment is accepted, and she has received from the hand of double for all her sins." And the Bible tells us that Jerusalem will receive double. Zechariah 14 says that Jerusalem will be ravished and the women taken. That's why Yeshua tells us to flee out of her. The teacher of righteousness, it says, "And God observed their deeds, that they sought him with a whole heart, and he raised for them a teacher of righteousness to guide them in the way of his heart." That's what Yeshua came to do, is to glorify the Father in his ways and the love behind his way. So, with the Dead Sea Scrolls, we spoke about the calendar, and like I said, I will do another teaching on the calendar only. But the last thing I want to talk about, and I want to get through this real quick, is the Torah. The Bible has things that tell us that are written in the Torah, and you go back to find them, and they're not there, such as the wood offering, the Feast of Oil, and the Feast of Wine. You're not going to find those anywhere in the Torah, but like Nehemiah here, Nehemiah 10:34, it says, and when they're building the temple, it says, "And we cast lots among the priests and the Levites and the people for the wood offering, to bring it into the house of our God, after the houses and after our fathers, at times appointed year by year, to burn upon the altar of Yahweh to our God, as it is written in the Torah." It's not written in the Torah. We don't find it anywhere. But what we're going to see is there is an excerpt in the Dead Sea Scrolls. There's books of Leviticus, but the books of Leviticus 23, where ours end, the Dead Sea Scrolls keeps going, and it talks about these things. So is that what Nehemiah is referring to? Is that the Leviticus once had extra in it, but now it doesn't, but we find it in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and we're going to see this. In Haggai, it says, "Go up to the mountain and bring wood and build the house, and I will take pleasure in it and will bring the glorified, saith Yahweh." And it goes on to say that they did this in the 24th day of the 6th month. And we're going to see in the Dead Sea Scrolls that the wood offering happens on the 23rd, the 24th, 25th, 26th, and the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th. Anyway, 6 days, and day 24 is the second day of the wood offering. And I'll show you that here in a minute. All right, from the temple scroll it says, "On the days of the first fruits of corn and of wine and of oil, and the festival of the offering of wood." So it calls the wood offering a festival. We're going to also find out that it calls the festival of wine and the festival of oil. It says, "On these days the tithe shall be eaten. On the 7th of the 6th month is a Sabbath," so it's in the 6th month, and it says, "On the 22nd of it, the feast of oil, and on the 1st of the Sabbath," so when it says Sabbath there, it means the 1st of the 7, which is we would call Sunday. It says afterwards, the wood offering. So all this is saying is on Sunday is the feast of oil, right? Which same as Shavuot, you count another 50 days, and then the feast of wine will be on a Sunday or on the first day of the week, and then you count another 50 days, you'll have a feast of oil, which is on a Sunday or the first day of the week. But then the day after is the wood offering, and we're going to see this. So here's the 6th month, and if you look at the calendar right there, you have the 22nd day, which it says oil there. That's on a Sunday. It's a festival, and then the day after is the wood offering. And it says in Nehemiah that they were gathering the wood for the wood offering on the 24th day of the 6th month, which we not find anywhere in the Torah, but the Dead Sea Scrolls continues on telling us these things, that this is when the wood offering is. And there's many more places that show the wood offering. I just showed one. I'll show you a couple more, but it's all throughout the calendrical or the calendar scrolls. Okay. And again, we will talk about the calendar more in depth later. Okay, it goes on in the temple scroll. It says, "On the days of the first fruits of the corn or the grain," that's his Shavuot, "and then of the wine, and then of the oil, and at the festival of the offering of wood. On these days, tithe shall be eaten." Okay, so these were all festivals that we would celebrate. However, I don't find anywhere in the Dead Sea Scrolls that calls these a Sabbaton, or what we would say a high Sabbath, but they call them festivals, but not a high Sabbath. The only one that I see that's high Sabbath is Shavuot. Okay, it goes on the 7th of the 6th month. Okay, the 7th day of the 6th month is a Sabbath, and on the 22nd of it, the feast of oil. First of the Sabbath on the Sunday, afterwards the wood offering. Okay, so again, we see that, and here's the excerpt from Leviticus, and you can see it talks about the festival of oil. The 12 tribes, they shall offer wood. Those who offer on the first day shall be Levi, and the rest is missing. Then it goes on to say, on the 3rd day, Reuben and Simeon, and on the 4th day, so forth and so forth. But what it's saying is that on each of these days, on each of these days, 2 of the tribes go up, and for 6 days, they each go up to offer their wood, and in 6 days, all 12 tribes would have gone up to offer their wood for festivals. All right. And then in Nehemiah 10:37 it says, "And that we should bring the first fruits of the dough and of our offering, and the fruit of all manner of trees, wood, of wine, and of oil." Again, that is not mentioned anywhere in the Torah, but he's saying that it is part of it. It goes on, "Unto the priest, to the chambers of the house, and the tithes of your ground unto the Levites." And the same, the Levites might have tithes in the city. In 10:39 it says, "For the children of Israel and the children of Levi shall bring the offering of the corn, Shavuot, and of the wine and of the oil unto the chambers Where are the vessels of the sanctuary and the priests, that the ministers and the porters and the singers, and will not forsake the house of God? So again, it tells us that we are to do these offerings, but nowhere in the Torah did it tell us that. But in the Dead Sea Scrolls it does. And finally in Nehemiah it goes on to say this, and he had prepared for him a great chamber, where aforetime they laid the meat offering, the frankincense, and the vessels, and the tithes, the corn, the new wine, the new oil, as was commanded. Wait, again, Nehemiah is saying that it was commanded in the Torah, but we don't see it. We find it in the Torah in the Dead Sea Scrolls, though. To be given to the Levites, to the singers, and to the porters, and to the offerers of the priests. All right, so this is from the calendar scroll within the Dead Sea Scrolls. It says on the 15th of it, which is talking about the third month. So the third month on the 15th day is the Feast of Weeks. On the third of it, which is talking about the fifth month, so the third day of the fifth month is the Feast of Wine. And then on the 22nd of it, and it's talking about the sixth month, and you can go back and it shows the sixth month. I just, for the sake of time, didn't put that up there. The Feast of Oil. So you have the Feast of Weeks, the Feast of Wine, and the Feast of Oil, 50 days apart from each other. And then afterwards, the offering of wood. Okay, so here is the first month. You can see down there at the bottom left where it says Sheaf. That is the first of the first fruits. They don't do it during the days of unleavened bread. They say that it comes the first after the first Shabbat, after the days of unleavened bread. And then you count your 50 days. It's going to take you to the third month. And like it said, the 15th day. And there you see on the 15th day is Shavuot, where we offer the wheat harvest, the Feast of Weeks, the first fruits. This is the Bikurim. And back here on, going back, on day 26, when they do the first of the grains, the sheaf here, this is the day that we do the Reshit Bikurim, or the first of the first fruits, or the head of the first fruits. And then on Shavuot, here on the 15th, we offer the Bikurim, or the first fruits of the wheat. Okay, and then 50 days later, we come to the fifth month, on the third day, as it said, and this is the Feast of Wine. And you can see they're all on the first day of the week, which we would call Sunday. And then 50 days later, you'll come to the sixth month. On the 22nd day, we offer the oil. And then for 6 days after that is the wood offering. All right, so I hope that helped. I know I went through that fast, but we will do the calendar in another video. And I just wanted to show you this real quick. I found this very funny. And the people that watch the video here too. This is at the Visitor Center at Qumran now. Years ago, in 2010, when I first went there, there was a great video about what they found there and how. But the video they play here now is all about disproving John the Baptist being out here. And you can hear the people in the background kind of giggling and laughing that that's what the Visitor Center has put up. But I thought I would show it to you, and I'm sorry for the quality. I was standing and I was holding the phone with my hand, so I hope it doesn't make you sick, but here you go.
Properly prepare for the final war. Every Jew who came along did so to get close to the right way and to stay away from the sons of darkness, evil people. Among them you will even find the high priests from Jerusalem. He who believes that our way is the son of light. And when the final war begins, all our opponents will be destroyed. But in the meantime, we are here. Here in this holy place, no one can distract our minds from worshiping the Lord. We don't possess much, and the little we have we share equally. The good Lord, He supplies us with all our needs, even in this barren desert. This morning, while working in the date grove, a neighbor from Emot Kanen, 5-hour walk from here, passed by. He told us of the bitter end of one John the Baptist, whose head was severed by King Herod. Suddenly, I remembered we too had one by the name of John. Years ago, he came to us and requested to volunteer. Each new candidate undergoes a thorough examination and, once accepted for a season of study, joins us in work as well. At the end of 2 years' time, just before becoming a full member, he arose, broke his vow to Yahweh, and left. Twice daily, we bathe together in the purifying bath in order to be sanctified in the pure waters. After bathing, we gather together to dine. First, we taste from the pure bread that was prepared for us by the high priests, and then from the wine. When we went for our evening's toil, we inscribed the high priest's words describing the Lord who breathed the spirits of light and darkness, and thereupon based every deed. The first was greatly loved by God, each of its actions desired. The second, and all that it encompassed, he despised forever. At the end of a day's work, we bathed again, and after purifying ourselves, gathered together for the evening meal. We dined and reverenced ourselves, gathered together for the evening meal, even when troublesome thoughts preyed on us. After the meal, I arose and asked for permission to speak. Could it be that the man who was murdered, of whom we heard from the passerby, was the same John that was beat us and enlightened? It is not the same man, replied the high priest. And in truth, we would be better employed in the studies of the Holy Scriptures, rather than wasting our time in the idle talk that spoils the spirit of Yahweh. The wrath that ensued was so great that a remark was noted in the book in dry disfavor. After having been punished, things calmed, and we resumed our studies as we do every night until a third of the night is past. But of these things I am not permitted to tell. We may not reveal our secrets to anyone. Only we, the sons of light, are allowed to share the secrets of Yahweh. This alone we reveal. All is predestined. There is no free will. Even before the time of creation, it was inscribed that you, somewhere in the future, would hear and see these words. It is God's wondrous plan that brought you today to this pure and sacred place. And God willing, perhaps the secrets may be revealed unto you. In the year 68 CE, just before the Roman army arrived. In the year 68 CE, just before the Roman army arrived.
Alright, so you can see in that video that the visitor center now, the whole purpose of that video is just to disprove that John the Baptist was out there, and that one of their people even suggesting it was punished for suggesting that that could be John the Baptist. But as you saw, we went through all of the evidence, and the evidence is there that that was John the Baptist. Their writings are, when you read them, it's almost like you're reading the New Testament. And yes, you're going to see some things in their scrolls that may not be exactly like what Yeshua said, and Yeshua is the one that teaches us. But when you put it all together and all the Torah, and it doesn't matter how much new information you learn and it's revealed to you, throughout the whole Bible, it's the same story. It's Yeshua and the plan of man to redeem us back to our eternal Father, that we can be in eternity with Him and with His Son. Alright, so here's some pictures of Qumran that I took, and I just thought I'd share them with you real quick. Water doesn't flow in this area very often, but as you can see, on this day that we went, the water started flowing. And my wife and I were here, and we got a kick out of it. It was kind of beautiful, and it made a big muddy river down below, but I thought I'd show you that. Alright, moving on. So aqueducts for the water coming in. And remember, we saw on that mosaic that the water was split from the river and actually went towards this area. So this area may have had water continually flowing into it or up from a spring at one point, and so there was probably a lot of water here. That's why they had so many ritual baths, they call them, or we would call them baptismals, because John the Baptist was at Qumran, out there baptizing people in the new covenant in Yeshua. Right? He baptized them with water. Yeshua came to baptize us with the Ruach HaKodesh. So here's another one of them. They're all over out there. You can see more steps going down into another one. There's cisterns, more steps going down into this one to wash. And here's how, we don't know what all these were for, but here's another one. And so in the picture you just saw like one or two, but there are several in this area. Why? Because John the Baptist was out here, and this is what they were doing, ritual baths. They found lots of money in this area as well, buried, gold coins, different coins. You can see that cave right there. That's where the first cave was found. And you can see the water flowing as I took that picture. And there it is again. And then here's a picture of many of the caves, but all along the mountainside as well they found scrolls. And here's some more of the caves. And then another overview. And then if you want to look at that again. And this is looking out to the Dead Sea. And so you can see it's not that far of a walk for these guys. If that's what they did all day long. If John the Baptist was going to walk over there to the Jordan and baptize, it's not very far. All right, that's what they believe it looked like. And the last I want to say here is, if you haven't seen the Copper Scroll Project, I encourage you to go look at it. It's at the Qumran. They found a copper scroll, which also talks about a silver scroll and a gold scroll and all of these temple treasures and stuff. And many people believe that the Ark of the Covenant and some other things are buried here. There is good evidence for it. Watch it. You decide for yourself. But this is from the Copper Scroll Project, and they believe that they laid out Qumran quite like Jerusalem. Jim Barfield does it. He's an old H-1 Cobra pilot and OH-58 pilot from the Army, warrant officer, and he's done all kinds of studies. I think he did something in firefighting investigation as well, but he does a really good job on this, and this is the layout that, and they found many things out here, like we saw the money bags found and stuff, so, but they can't dig right now, but go check it out. These are what the actual copper scrolls look like. This is them up close. And so there, like I said, there's other scrolls as well that it talks about. All right, so let's finish off with this in the Damascus document. It says, all flesh on dry land perished. They were as though they had never been, because they did their own will and did not keep the commandments of their Maker, so that his wrath was kindled against them. Through it, the children of Noah went astray together with their kin and were cut off. Why? Because they did their own will and not the will of God. But it goes on to say this about Abraham. It says Abraham did not walk in it. What's it? His own will. It said, and he was counted a friend of God because he kept the commandments of God and did not choose his own will. And he handed them down to Isaac and Jacob, who kept them and were recorded as friends of God and party to the covenant forever. This is the eternal covenant, the covenant of promise. This is why Abraham says he looked forward to Yeshua's day. It's why the New Testament tells us that Abraham looked for a city that was of a heavenly origin, not built with men's hands, a heavenly country, a city not of this world. In John, Yeshua answered them and said, my doctrine is not mine, but his that sent me. If any man will do his will, he shall know of the doctrine, whether it be of God or I speak of myself. Then Yeshua said to them, take heed and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees. How is it, he says, that you do not understand that I speak not concerning bread, but that you should beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees? He goes on to say, and he said unto them, his doctrine, beware of the scribes which love to go in long clothing and salutations in the marketplaces. Then they understood how he had bade them not beware of the leaven of bread, but their doctrine of the Sadducees and Pharisees. And again, In Galatians it says, a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. I've talked about this in the Feast of Unleavened Bread. That leaven's not referring to sin, it's referring to doctrine. Get rid of the old doctrine and be a new lump so that you can receive the new doctrine, the new leaven, and then that the leaven will leaven the whole lump. On Shavuot, we offer up 2 leavened loaves. Okay, purge out therefore the old leaven, the old doctrine, that you may be a new lump, that you are unleavened. For even Christ our Passover is crucified for us. Now we can learn his doctrine and grow in it, because the scales are removed. We now see clearly the love that Yeshua has brought to us. Therefore let us keep the feast not with old leaven, with the old doctrine, neither with the leaven of malice or wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. Because it says, the kingdom of heaven is like unto leaven, doctrine, which a woman, the Ruach HaKodesh, took and hid in 3 measures of meal till the whole was leavened. So when the whole is leavened, that's when the bread is ready. So I say this because many people that come to the understanding of the Torah and wanting to learn more about it, they go to the Sadducees and Pharisees or the Orthodox Jewish community, and they learn their ways and their traditions. But there were 2 groups from the first century, we now know. There were those in Qumran and those in Jerusalem under the Sadducees and Pharisees. And Yeshua and John the Baptist both rebuked the Sadducees and Pharisees, saying, calling them pits of vipers. Yeshua telling them, those the unbelieving, that the kingdom is taken from them and given to the Gentiles. We've talked about this. But today people don't want to look at the Dead Sea Scrolls. They go, push those aside. When if you go through them, it's all about Yeshua. It's all about the New Covenant. It's all about the New Testament. When we read it, we see they're almost hand in hand. And now we can see that John the Baptist was there in Qumran. He was those out there. They were preserving God's word, not a religion, a relationship with God, and to have his heart in us. All right. With that said, it says, and he said unto them his doctrine, beware of the scribes, which love to go in long clothings and love salutations in the market. Beware of their doctrine. Once they turn to Yeshua, they should get rid of that doctrine as well and turn to what the Torah says, what the Bible says, what God's word says. Real quick, remember this. Yeshua says, you are from beneath. I am from above. You are of this world. I am not of this world. My kingdom is not of this world. My kingdom were of this world, then would my servants fight, that I should not be delivered to the Jews. All right. So this is the calendar. You can take a look at it, take a picture of it. I will talk about this later in another teaching. But for now, we're getting through this. We're going to get into day 6. We've talked all the way up to millennial day 5. I think I will do the teaching of Israel next. I'm cautious to do it, but maybe. But remember, the first 2,000 years was the age of creation, chaos, wickedness, and destruction. The second 2,000 years was a physical Israel because they received God's word without faith, so they didn't receive the Spirit. And the Gentiles are grafted in with the Spirit. It was poured out until that time is over. Right? We've seen this. Yeshua returned to his place until they acknowledge their offense. And he says he will heal us. After 2 days, he will revive us. And the 3rd day, he will raise us up. And he tells David in the Psalm, Yeshua, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool, when Hasatan's cast to the earth at the end of day 6. And we're going to see that when we get into the millennial day 6. Whom the heaven must receive until the times of restitution of all things, which God has spoken by the mouth of all his holy prophets since the world began. And it says, and Moses went down from the mountain to sanctify the people, just as Yeshua came down from Mount Zion to sanctify us. He washed us in the blood of the Lamb, and said to the people, be ready against the 3rd day. And so we're supposed to be ready for that 3rd day, the 7th millennium, which is the 3rd day after Yeshua died on day 4. So day 5, 6, and day 7 is the 3rd day. And then the millennial kingdom. And then after that 1,000 years, it'll be eternal life. There will be a new heaven and new earth, no darkness, no night, no evil, no pain, no tears, no sorrow, no war, no death, no sin, no knowledge of good and evil, no sea, nor Satan. It'll be good and perfect for eternity. And with that, Now Yahweh bless you and keep you. Yahweh make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yahweh lift up his face upon you and give you peace. Shalom.